Hey Shalom, it's Izzy here with Holy Language Institute at holylanguage.com. I wanted to share with you the Hebrew word for perseverance because it's a very meaningful word. If you are going through a hard time, or if you are going to go through a hard time, which includes all of us, I hate to say it, but you know, life can definitely be tough at times. Then I think you'll find this meaningful, and I hope this is really encouraging for you. So, we're reading through the epistle of Paul the Apostle to the Romans. And if you wanted to use the Hebrew terminology, it's Shaul of Tarsus. He was one of Messiah's shlichim, his emissaries, and he wrote this letter to Yeshua's Talmidim, his disciples in the city of Rome. And in chapter 5, where we just finished reading through the first half of chapter 5. And listen, obviously, Paul didn't originally write this letter in Hebrew, in all probability, considering he knew both Greek and Hebrew Aramaic, and considering that his audience in Rome was primarily Greek and Latin speakers, it's probable that he wrote this in Greek. But you have to remember about Paul that he grew up in Jerusalem, and he read the Bible in Hebrew, and he prayed the traditional Jewish prayers in Hebrew. So that was kind of like his theological dictionary. And it's really interesting to read Paul in English, and to note the underlying Hebraic thought patterns and Hebrew phrases and even Hebrew wordplay, even in Romans. So that's why we're reading through this letter in a translation into Hebrew. But anyway, so chapter 5, he's talking about a way that we're kind of crazy. Like we do something that's really counterintuitive. When we experience trouble in our lives, like we don't respond to it the way most people do. We respond to it in a positive way. Maybe even we get a little bit excited about it. We praise God for it because we know that trouble is coming into our lives for a reason. And we know that there's going to be a good end result. And so one of the things Paul talked about here was, he talked about here the Hebrew word for trouble. I'll show that one to you real quick, just as a little bonus. The Hebrew word for trouble is tzara. And then the plural is tzarot, as you can see here. And tzara has the sense of trouble or tribulation, and it's from the Hebrew word to be put under pressure, actually. So if you've ever felt like you're under great pressure, maybe you're just feeling squished, you're caught between a rock and a hard place, as we say in English. That's the Hebrew word for trouble, right there. And he says that trouble, it brings us to savlanut. And that's the word I really want to look at with you here. Savlanut. That's the Hebrew word for perseverance. It's also translated in English as endurance, or maybe long-suffering or patience in older English translations. And the Hebrew word is savlanut. And one of the things to remember about Hebrew is that Hebrew is a very action-oriented language. Every word in Hebrew is made from verbs, from 3-letter verbal roots, and this is no exception. So you may be asking, what's the physical action behind the Hebrew word for perseverance? And the physical action is it's this verb right here, saval. And the word saval, it means to carry a heavy load. It means to bear a burden. And it means to you have to bear up underneath that thing. And that's the Hebrew word for perseverance. So perseverance in Hebrew is savlanut, and it has the sense of just carrying on. There's something that's weighing you down, but you carry on. That's the Hebrew word for perseverance. And thankfully, that's not the end of the story either. It's not just a matter of carrying on forever. He talks about how perseverance goes hand in hand with. This is a really interesting word. It goes in the translator of Romans into Hebrew here, Franz Delitzsch. He was a very, very well educated Christian Hebraist in the 1800s. Translated the New Testament into Hebrew, and was a great lover of the Jewish people. Also a philo-Semite, we could say. And he picked an interesting phrase to translate this idea. He picked the phrase amidah v'nisayon, standing in trial. Or maybe you could even have, it has the sense of standing against temptation. So when you're going through those tests, and that's your posture, a posture of standing. Savlanut, perseverance, it goes hand in hand with this Amidav and Nisayon. And thankfully, that's not where the story ends. It ends with tikva. It ends with hope. And then later on, a couple lines later, Paul says, and it ends with ahava. It ends in love. So, we go through hard times, but the end result is going to be that you become a deeper person, and you have an increased capacity to love, to love people in an empathetic way, to feel a greater sense of compassion for people who are going through hard times because you've gone through them. And it also, when you make it through those times, you are going to have a more powerful hope, because during those times you're stripped down to the essentials, and you ask, what's really worth it and what isn't, and why am I here, and why am I doing the stuff that I'm doing? Like, what is my hope for the future? And hopefully that encourages you. And I wanted to show you one thing actually from the original Greek here for this word, that in the Hebrew word here again is amidav nisayon, standing in trial. So I'll show you a good friend of mine here. I want to introduce you to my good friend eSword. This is a free Bible software that anyone can get, and I find it very handy. I often use it in my lessons, and I explain in my lessons how to use it. So here's Romans chapter 5 in the New American Standard in eSword. So, perseverance goes hand in hand with what? Proven character. Okay, so this is how this word is translated. Now, you may be wondering, okay, what's the original Greek word there? And then is it used anywhere else in the New Testament, and how is it used there? Maybe it can give us a better understanding of what proven character is. So here's how you're going to do that. If you want to see how else this word is translated, you can load eSword up with all your favorite translations. There's a download section here, and you can get different Bibles and stuff. And so you're going to have them all loaded on here, and then you can hit compare, this little compare tab, and it'll show you how it's translated. All right. So you can see here, most of these are simply translated as, character, proven character. New Living says strength of character. Now this is interesting. The King James Version and Young's Literal Translation, they have the word experience. So, savlanut, perseverance, is patience or endurance in the older English here. And then proven character is experience. Why do they use the word experience? Like, that doesn't really sound like proven character and experience aren't exactly the same word. Like even the fact that experience is one word, proven character is two words. So what's going on here? So here's what you do. You go to like your plus version. Okay, so like for instance here I have my KJV plus, King James Version plus, and then I also have the New American Standard plus. So let's go with the NASB plus. Proven character. Okay, so here you mouse over the word. It's going to show you the Strong's number 1382, and then it'll show you how many times it's used. It says it's used 7 times. So this is what we're going to do. Right click, quick search, and it's going to show us where that word is used in the scriptures and how it's translated. All right. So check this out. First time it's used is in Romans chapter 5, and it's translated as proven character. Now look at this. Next time it's used, it has the sense of a test. The time after that, it's translated with the sense of an ordeal. After that, it's used with the sense of a proof. And again here, proof. And then finally, the last time here is again slightly related, proven worth. All right. So let's just stop and think about that for a second, because it's very meaningful for us when we are experiencing suffering in our lives, when we're going through something that's hard. We get to exercise our savlanut. We get to carry on under pressure and under that heavy load. And what we're getting through that exercise is it's like you're undergoing a test. It's like you're experiencing an ordeal, and through that you prove yourself, you prove your character, you prove your worth, and hopefully you come out with flying colors. I'll admit I've gone through some very intense suffering in my life, and I have not always come through with flying colors. Sometimes I feel like I failed God and I failed other people. Sometimes I ended up doing stupid things, and yes, I did learn about myself through that, but I've done some really stupid things in my life. But I survived. It's kind of the difference between Judas and Simon Peter. Judas and Simon Peter both failed the Messiah, but Judas went and killed himself. End of his story. Simon Peter cried his eyes out, and then he came back. So, I can relate to Simon Peter. Yeshua said to him, he said, Simon, Simon, Satan's demanded to test you. I've prayed for you that your faith wouldn't fail you. And when you come back, when you return, strengthen your brothers, encourage them. And Yeshua knew what Simon was going to do. He still loved him. He still wanted him. And he still had this hope that it wasn't the end for Simon Peter. I say, hopefully when we go through these experiences, we come through with flying colors. Such may not be the case, but listen, if you came through, you came through. And that is something to celebrate. And really, like, Mazel Tov, congratulations to you. If you haven't come through yet, God is there and he loves you. And he is your strength when you're weak, and he is holding you by the hand. He's leading you, and you may not feel like he's protecting you, but he is. It could be so much worse. He is the one who is shielding you from so much worse. And I want to encourage you with that. Just from looking at this verse in the original Greek, and seeing what it has to tell us, and then also definitely looking at it in our translation here by Franz Delitzsch. So if there's one takeaway for you here, it's just that the Hebrew word for perseverance is savlanut, and it comes from the verb saval, which means to bear a burden, to carry a load, and to carry on with it. And I pray for you that if you are going through a hard time, that you would be given the strength to persevere. And if you're not going through a hard time, I pray for you that when you experience the tough stuff in your life, I pray that your faith wouldn't fail you, and that you would be given the strength to carry on, and that also now, in this season of your life, if you're in a summer season of life, get ready for hard times. Strengthen your faith. Spend that time with God. Invest in quality relationships with fellow disciples and with a congregation. So when it's tough, you'll be surrounded by good people to encourage you, to pray for you, and to help you pull through. So this was a little takeaway from our lesson. We went through a lot more in the actual lesson. I shared a couple stories actually about how I was a hardcore Bible quizzer with the Christian Missionary Alliance Church in my teens. Memorized books of the New Testament like Matthew, Romans, Hebrews, 1st and 2nd Peter. I shared some of my experiences with that and what happened to me when I experienced a spiritual awakening when I was 16 years old. Talked about how when I was first started learning Hebrew, I just read through the Torah word by word, verse by verse, and I shared some of my experiences with that. And we talked about some other words also, how Hasidic Jews, for instance, are a profound picture of New Testament grace, of how about how the ocean is a beautiful reminder of the Hebrew word for hope. And we talked about a whole bunch of things like that. So I'd love to have you join us at holylanguage.com and learn with us. We come out with a new lesson every week, and we have quite a few ongoing lesson series and some courses for you, discipleship courses if you're serious about following Yeshua of Nazareth, growing in your discipleship. If you're serious about understanding the Bible better, then definitely come and check us out, and we'd love to have you. All right, have a great day. Shalom.